Conan, Goodfellas, and MTV, how Tony Bennett revived his career. Written in the New York Times. Yes, that's right, the New York Times. Here we are, the New York Times, here on the 22nd day of July in the year 2023. Hashtag Sam the Vote. Shout out to everybody. I do see everyone. Yes, a little late on this segment. It's been late all morning long. But here we are, dead man. Hashtag we are all Toy Mercs. Why? Because all of Toy Mercs should be hashtag Samming the Vote. Anyway, shout out. I did see dead man. Yes, we're a little bit behind. Listen, this has been disruptions all morning long. Not really sure what it is. People say Lord Blanket. No such thing as a Lord Blanket. But here we are, broadcasting live from the WDCE studios out of the University of Richmond. You're listening to 90.1 FM. Conan, Goodfellas, and MTV. How Tony Bennett revived his career. Mr. Bennett's career went downhill in the 1970s as drug and financial problems haunted him. Then his son became his manager, and everything took a rags to riches turn. In the 1970s, Tony Bennett's career and life were in disarray. He was performing mostly in Las Vegas, a declining city that glued him to a bygone era. His music was out of vogue. His last top 40 single had been in 1965. He was using cocaine heavily, and his finances were in ruin, prompting the IRS to threaten to take his home. Well into the 1980s, it seemed that everything was going wrong for Tony Bennett. Then came a comeback for the ages. The rebirth of Mr. Bennett, who died yesterday, ensured that he would remain one of the most revered singers of American popular music for generations to come. And he did it by staying true to his calling as a champion of the standards, known as the Great American Songbook. Mr. Bennett managed a career resurgence in the late 1980s and 90s without changing much about his music. All it took was meeting members of a new audience where they were. Late-night talk show appearances, a cameo on The Simpsons, and a memorable performance on MTV Unplugged, which we have been playing several of those songs throughout the morning. In 1994, that led to constant airplay on the network and a surprise Grammy for the album of the year. Gen X, which prized the authenticity of Indian grunge rock that was ready for the unadorned voice of a 60-something Tony Bennett. The period was, in fact, a Tony Bennett renaissance. Pure and simple, said Robert Thompson, the director of the Belier Center for Television and Popular Culture at Syracuse University. Other musical artists have experienced similar resurgences. Kate Bush's Running Up a Hill, A Deal with God from 1985, reached millions of new fans last year as it was featured on the show Stranger Things and topped the charts. ABBA released a new album in 2021, its first in decades, and in 2002, a remix of Elvis's A Less Little Conversation became a global smash decades after he died, supposedly sitting on a toilet. Okay, but what makes Mr. Bennett's career arc remarkable is the fact that he won over new generations of young people as he released albums and toured across the country into his 60s and far beyond. Said an associate professor at the School of Performing Arts in Virginia Tech, saying his popularity was bolstered when and wherever he paired up with younger stars, such as Lady Gaga, whom he performed with in 2021. Usually when you hit that age that he was in the 80s, you're kind of over. said Mrs. Wyatt. That's the professor at Virginia Tech. It is not standard. That kind of resurgence and regaining the mainstream popularity is unheard of. However, the comeback story begins after Mr. Bennett nearly died in 1979 when he was high as a kite and almost overdosing on drugs. Soon after, he turned to his older son, Danny Bennett, to manage his career. Danny Bennett did not immediately respond to calls seeking comment on Friday night, but in a 1999 interview with the New York Times, which is where we're reading this from right now, he recounted the moment his father had asked for his help. The IRS was seeking to collect $2 million back in taxes from Mr. Bennett, causing the singer to turn to drugs to escape. When the IRS and his accountants warned that his house would be seized, Mr. Bennett took drugs and had to be rushed to the hospital. That was the day of reckoning, said his son, Danny Bennett. That is when he called me up, and I think it was a desperate move. Danny Bennett was then a 25-year-old punk rocker with long dyed blue hair, no college degree, but he said he believed that his father could be marketed as a living American legend, a master of his craft and a career that could be revived. And the strategy worked. Many have speculated on why young people began to fall in love with Mr. Bennett's songs all over again. It might have been the universal appeal, simple lyrics, and a melody, and conforming, yet sometimes a raspy voice that helped Mr. Bennett transcend generations. Tony Bennett's style, by not being aggressively timely, therefore becomes itself timeless. I'm going to say that again. Tony Bennett's style itself becomes timeless. Danny Bennett's direction also helped his father remain in his musical lane. Stay in your lane is what they always say. Singing the same classic songs that had brought him to fame in the 1950s. Mr. Bennett was soon regularly appearing on late-night TV shows with David Letterman, Jay Leno, all over the place, and even before Jay Leno, Johnny Carson before that. Singing the same songs that had brought him fame in the 1950s. Mr. Bennett was soon regularly appearing on late-night TV shows in addition to those shows. Specials, CBS specials, ABC specials, New Year's Eve specials, all across the board. Younger audiences came to love the New York singing melodic jazzy tunes with a smile. My next guest is truly one of the great singers of all time, Mr. Letterman said, announcing him in 1986, introducing him, who wore a dark suit and tie, swayed as he bellowed, "Everybody has the blues." In 1993, Conan O'Brien noted that Mr. Bennett's rise in popularity before asking, what's going on? All the young adults in America, they consider me cool, said Mr. Bennett, before being showered with applause. Indeed, young Americans did love Mr. Bennett. A big reason for that was MTV. That's right, you heard it, MTV. Say it again, MTV, which at the time was still courting them with music videos that defined pop culture. In 1994, Mr. Bennett performed MTV Unplugged, with guest appearances from the singer-songwriters Katie Lang, Elvis Costello. The album version would go on to win the Grammy Award for Album of the Year, causing a shock to Mr. Bennett to say on stage while accepting the award, I really don't believe it. MTV would play his songs alongside those of alternative rock stalwarts of the day: Weezer, Green Day, Stone Temple Pilots, Pearl Jam. And then there would be a song by Tony Bennett. When you're looking at the 90s, the real kind of important place for music invention was this MTV audience. Movies and television shows also helped cement Mr. Bennett's place in pop culture. Goodfellas, the Martin Scorsese mob movie, released in 1990, opens with an iconic sequence: Mr. Bennett bellowing the opening lines of Rags to Riches. As Ray Liotta, who recently passed away, his character begins narrating his life in the mafia. Mr. Bennett also started playing himself in films and TV shows like The Simpsons and Analyze This, the 1999 mafia comedy film starring Robert De Niro. In his 2012 memoir, Life is a Gift, The Zen of Bennett, the singer wrote that in the 1960s, he was told that he had to change his music for new generations to accept him. Yet through the years, every age responds to my singing, Mr. Bennett said, even though I haven't changed a thing. Born in 1926 and passing away yesterday on July 21st in the year 2023. Tony Bennett, the last of the crooners, is no longer with us. But yet his stature and his journey remains one in which Americans and music lovers all over can agree on, that he set the standard and raised the bar the only way that someone here on Saturday morning knows how to do as well. Broadcasting live from the WDCE studios out of the University of Richmond. You're listening to 90.1 FM. We've been counting the top 15 songs of Tony Bennett here this morning. And as we close it out, here are the last four songs. The last top four songs of Tony Bennett. Number 7 in 1954. Number 2 in 1954. Number 1, 6 weeks in 1951. Number 1, 8 weeks in 1953. And of course, number 1 for 10 weeks in 1951. Broadcasting live here from the WDCE studios out of the University of Richmond. You're listening to 90.1 FM. Download the Live 365 app, search WDCE, and you can listen to the show outside of the listening area. At Sam Newsman, all over social media, and make sure you text 901 to 804 569 5678. That's 901 to 804 569 5678. Broadcasting live once again from the WDCE studios out of the University of Richmond. You're listening to 90.1 FM here on the only radio show dedicated to the magic and nostalgia of Saturday morning, hosted by me, a real media puppet. I'm the most trusted puppet in media. Reporting since Roswell, I'm Sam Newsman, and this is Saturday Morning.